On a mystery, going wherever it leads. Hey, everybody. That's right. I'm singing Tom Petty. I was singing Traveling Wilburys earlier, which is like singing 1/5 or 1/6 of Tom Petty. You know what occurred to me earlier, how many of the Traveling Wilburys are no longer with us? They've traveled on. Sort of awful, right? Roy Orbison was like almost immediately. I think they were still producing hits when he died. And of course, Tom Petty and George Harrison. Aren't you glad you tuned in? Donna's here, Frank's here, Roger's here, Chuck's here, Matthew is here, David, Rob. Hi, everybody. Good to see you. We're going to get started. I had a fun open yesterday that I totally forgot about because I didn't write it down. Plus, I was really nervous yesterday. That was going to be from the edge of Mordor, from the home of the Balrog. Happy to say the wind has died down. The fires are still not contained, which is weird because they're also not going anywhere. And spare a thought for people in the area. 60,000 people, I think I heard, were evacuated. We know one of them, you and me probably, David Sparks, Mac Sparky, from Mac Power Users, posted on Twitter last night that he got evacuated. So I'm sure he's not watching. I hope he's okay. Right, you want to do a show? I think we should do a show. You could try to do a show anyway. Somebody said good evening. Good evening, Mac Interactive. There you go. Hey, Webb Bixby's in the house. Dawn is also here. Right. We're going to stop doing that now. Stay in the chat room. I'll come by later. Hello, Chuck. Okay, now I'm really done doing that. Stand by. Wait, hold on. Yes, okay. Now stand by. Pondering new Macs and making corrections. It is Tuesday, the 27th of October, 2020, and this is macOS Ken Live. Hi, everybody. I'm Ken Ray, welcoming you into another edition of macOS Ken Live, one that's a tiny bit more together than yesterday's. Thanks for being with me yesterday. I really appreciate it for a couple of reasons. First of all, it gave me something to do in the middle of the afternoon instead of freaking out. And yet, at the same time, I've gone back and listened. I was like, kind of all over the place. Now, I'm going to be all over the place again today, but for different reasons. Second half of the show, we're going to do some corrections, actually from yesterday. I may also insult either Jon Stewart or Apple TV Plus or both. I'm not sure if I'm going to do that yet or not, but stick around. We'll find out. First half of the show, though, we've had new Apple Watches announced recently. We've had new iPhones announced very recently. There are more new iPhones coming. There's a HomePod Mini that's going to be put up for order, I guess, golly, in about a week and a half. I am ridiculously excited about the possibility of new Macs. That's what we're talking about in the first half of the show, because there are starting to be more signs of new Macs on the horizon. Now, let me stop me right there. We already know there are going to be new Macs by the end of the year because Apple said this summer that it would begin the transition to Apple Silicon by the end of this year. And there's not a lot of this year left. So there have to be new Macs coming relatively soon, and at least one, if not a few, on Apple's new Apple Silicon architecture. Knowing that it's going to happen, though, doesn't make it less exciting when we actually start to get signs. This is a piece from iDownload blog, kind of. It's from iDownload blog, but they're actually highlighting a report from MacBook, I believe it is, the German site. They say that the MacBook Pro is currently out of stock at Apple's online and retail stores, and out of stock is always kind of a weird thing. There is a delay right now. If you go to order a 16-inch MacBook Pro, it is listed with a November 11th through November 18th delivery time frame. Similarly, specific 13-inch MacBook Pro models are listed with early to mid or late November shipping. Well, that just sounds like November, doesn't it? Early, mid, or late. That's just like sometime. I know it doesn't usually take that long. So yes, out of stock, I guess, would be the right term. It just feels weird when you say it that way. So that's what the German site said was going on. I checked, iDownload Block also checked, and that's also what's happening here in the States. I was showing those delay times, I guess, or that expanded delivery window, let's say. I stopped there, though MacroCop went a bit further. According to a machine translation, the site said the MacBook Air looks a bit better November 5th to 12th, which is actually still early to mid-November, so I'm not sure why that looks better. Situation is similarly tense with the iMac. 2 of 3 2.5-inch iMac models. Terribly sorry. 2 of 3 21.5-inch iMac models will be available at the end of November, and 1 model will be available at the beginning of November. 2 models of the 27-inch iMac can be delivered immediately, and 1 model at the end of November. But we're not done. A piece from Mac Rumors that I caught earlier today says Apple has filed a mystery personal computer with placeholder B2002 name in a Bluetooth product database. According to that piece, the product is filed under the personal computer category, which Apple has used for previous Mac and iPad listings in the database, so it's hard to pinpoint the listing to a specific product this time. The listing could simply end up being for a new iPad Air unveiled last month. It could also be for the first Apple Mac Silicon or something else. That last part kind of takes the wind out of the sails of everything, doesn't it? It could be a new Mac or anything. It's really not, I say that's unhelpful, but honestly, they're telling the story as it is. I want them to tell the story that I want to hear. So, props to them. You know what? Hey, it could be anything. You're right. I'm with you. Could be not a Mac, could be an Intel-based Mac. Could be the start of Apple Silicon. We don't know yet. I'm actually I applaud, I think, Mac Rumors' conservatism around the whole Apple Silicon story, at least over the past few days, because they were the ones that brought us the story yesterday as well that said that a new 16-inch MacBook Pro had turned up in a recent boot camp update. And they don't want to say this is it, right? In fact, they don't even want to say that what Apple said was there, because what was mentioned in the boot camp update was a 2020 16-inch MacBook Pro. And there isn't one yet. Apple did change the graphics on the 16-inch MacBook Pro earlier this year, but they're still calling that the 2019 MacBook Pro, because the only thing they did was change the graphics. They didn't change anything else, apparently. So Mac Rumors thinks it's possible that Apple made a mistake there. It's also possible that Apple made a mistake. Well, Apple made a mistake somehow. And even mistake is kind of hard to say, because here we are talking about it, and it's not the worst thing for Apple. Apple did something weird there. Either they accidentally called a machine that they've been calling 2019 2020, or they accidentally let us know that this thing is on the way. Although, again, we know that new Macs are on the way. We just don't know exactly what it's going to be. Sticking with their conservatism, Mac Rumors says that they don't think a new 16-inch MacBook Pro would be the first thing that would have Apple Silicon, because all the rumors say that that's going to start at the lower end. So you might be looking at a MacBook Air, a 13-inch MacBook Pro, or possibly even the return of an ultra-portable 12-inch MacBook Pro. That's their expectation. I don't really understand why. I know that's what the rumors have been, but Apple stood on stage. Well, no, they didn't. I'm sorry. Apple virtually stood in some set somewhere in Cupertino talking about what was coming for the Apple Silicon. And they said, if you want to see how it runs, well, it's running already. We've been doing this part of this presentation and this part of this presentation, and this has been running on Apple Silicon. I'm assuming they weren't running that off an iPad Air, or a MacBook Air. So they can obviously do some heavy lifting with these machines. Why dip a toe in with a 12-inch MacBook or a 13-inch MacBook Air? Why not go ahead with the MacBook Pro? Now, all of this did make me wonder about some other things today. And here are the things I'm wondering. How does the pandemic play into Apple Silicon and vice versa? Macs right now are on an upswing because more people are working from home, more people are doing schooling from home. They're buying more Macs. They're buying more iPads. Are people going to be into an unproven architecture? Or are people going to care? This goes back to the whole thing that we were talking about either yesterday, yesterday, because the day before was Sunday. Yesterday, we were talking about the fact that Apple watchers know that a new iPhone comes out in the fall, usually September. This year, of course, it's October and November. But we all know that since, when was it? The iPhone 4S, I think, because it used to come out in the summer. They shifted to the fall. It's been the fall for years now. We all know that that is the case, with the exception of the iPhone SE. Average consumer, like truly average consumer, the people who don't even pay attention to buying a new phone until their old phone breaks, probably don't have any idea when the next iPhone comes out or when we might rightly expect it. Does somebody going into an Apple store tomorrow care that it's an Intel-based processor as opposed to Apple Silicon? Or do they just want to know, can it do all the things I need it to do? Is it fast? And how much does it cost? Which was another thing I wondered about. With Apple making its own silicon, is there any way that they can or will differentiate on price? They're never going to come in Chromebook cheap, and I shouldn't say never. They're not likely to come in Chromebook cheap, at least not anytime soon. What's a MacBook Air? $999? Can we bring that down to $8? I mean, would they do that? Not to get people to buy it, because I think people who are going to buy a Mac are still going to buy a Mac anyway, but can you eliminate any hurdle there by taking a few bucks off? And would they do that? I mean, they're not going to charge, or maybe they make it 1-to-1. I don't know. These are just a few things I was thinking about. Maybe like the iPhone Pro and the iPhone Pro Max, the 12, from the 11 to the 12, maybe the prices just stay the same. This is how much a MacBook Air is today. This is how much a MacBook Air is tomorrow. Switching out the Intel processor for Apple Silicon, maybe that doesn't mean a thing. Because as we say, nerds are the ones who are going to care. And I'm pointing at you and I'm pointing at me. When I say nerds are the ones who are going to care, people who are, walking from, I'm doing a whole mall scenario in my head, but there's no mall scenario anymore. People who are just going into an Apple store to pick up a Mac likely don't know nor care who makes the processor. They will want to know the speed, even though that won't really matter to them either. And they'll walk out with a computer that's hopefully the best for them. Last thing I was wondering about is if there is a November event. And I think I know the answer to this one already, or I think I've decided the answer because none of us know until we do. If there is a November event, and the rumor is there's going to be a November event on the 17th of November. Turns out they decided that's a good month to have a November event in. If they do an Apple event, would they even mention the Intel Mac, except to talk about the speed of the new Mac or the Apple Silicon versus the Macs that came out last year or 2 years ago? In other words, we know that they're coming out with more Intel Macs because they said that at WWDC. That is probably largely to ease the concerns of businesses that are still buying the Mac, maybe of educational institutions that are still buying the Mac. They want to know that the thing that they said 6 months ago, that they put on their budget 6 months ago or a year ago to buy over the next 2 years, is going to be coming out and is also going to be supported. But are we done hearing about new Intel-based Macs? Like, when Apple gets together and says, hey, everybody. Just another thing I was wondering. We may talk about Jon Stewart in just a moment. We may not. I don't know yet. Definitely going to do some corrections coming up here in a second. But first, I want to let you know about, this is the part of the show where I ask you to do something or I tell you about something. And what I'm going to ask you to do is, if you can do anything to help out the stuff that I'm doing, that would be great. I have a Patreon page. It is patreon.com/MacOSKen. I'm not necessarily asking you to go there, but that is one way that you can sort of help out what I do. The other way, though, and probably the biggest way, like the stuff I do, share the stuff I do, and when I say like, I mean, if there's a like button, if you could hit like, if there's a rating thing, if you could do that, that would be great. If you like it, please don't flame me. Yeah, that's about it really, because this stuff that I'm doing, I'm thoroughly enjoying. I hope you're enjoying it as well, and I would like for more people to enjoy it. So I guess, if you could hit like and hit share on the grandest way possible, that'd be wonderful. I kind of feel like the thing that I was thinking about with Jon Stewart is almost mean, and I don't want it to be mean, but I'm trying to figure out. So there's a story in the Hollywood Reporter that I've only had a chance to skim. It will be on tomorrow's edition of macOS Ken, but apparently Jon Stewart is going to do a show for Apple TV, and it's not going to be daily, and it's not going to be weekly. It is going to talk about issues in the national consciousness, conscience, maybe all three. It's also going to talk about some of the advocacy work that he does, which is all commendable and laudable and wonderful. And maybe I need to not say anything. Is Apple TV Plus cool? What I found myself wondering was, does Jon Stewart make Apple TV Plus cooler, or does Apple TV Plus make Jon Stewart uncool? Now, I'm also a little worried about whether this is going to happen. It's in the Hollywood Reporter. Apple hasn't announced it yet. Relatively soon after Jon Stewart left The Daily Show, he was supposed to go do some series for HBO that, near as I can figure, never materialized. In fact, the Hollywood Reporter says it would be a big deal for Apple to get Jon Stewart for his first thing after The Daily Show, which he left 5 years ago now. It'll be probably 6 years by the time we actually see him doing this. So I worry a tiny bit about, whether we're actually going to see this thing, although it comes with a lot attached. He apparently also got a first look deal with Apple. So, stuff that his Busboy, what is it? Busboy Entertainment, Busboy Productions, stuff that his Busboy Productions production company is trying out. Apple gets to look at it first. They're not locking him in. He can go someplace else with anything that they pass on. Netflix keeps trying to do, I say keeps trying to do, Netflix has tried to do a few daily shows. And I don't mean daily show like The Daily Show, but they've tried to do some daily or weekly sort of conversational stuff. Like Kevin McHale actually had a show that was a bit like Talk Soup that I personally found difficult to watch. And I'm a Kevin McHale fan. Kevin McHale, I think I'm saying that wrong. Isn't he a basketball player? Joel McHale. You say Talk Soup wouldn't work with Kevin McHale? Yeah, Joel McHale. Anyway, they've tried to do some daily stuff or some weekly stuff, and that's not the way I think about Netflix, and so it never really got me. I know that CBS All Access has something called, what is it, Tuning Out the News, I believe it's called, where they have an animated daily news show that I have yet to watch, and it comes out every day, Monday through Friday, and I still haven't checked it out. I think about things like, the Oprah Winfrey, the Conversation series that she has. That's not really what I turned to Apple TV Plus for. I don't know. Obviously, it's way too early. This is not even an official deal as far as I know. They've just signed it. We have no idea what it's going to look like. But, it's at Apple TV Plus. And I was like, ooh, well, I have to think about that for as long as I can. Let's do corrections, and then we'll be done. I brought you some CIRP numbers yesterday, compliments of our friends at Apple Must. And I thought they were talking about two different things. I thought they were talking about iPhone sales, and then I thought they were talking about Apple retail. So when I said that Apple Online had beat Apple stores for the first time, and that was a huge deal, well, I mean, it is still a pretty big deal, but it turns out they were talking specifically about iPhones. So I apologize for getting that wrong if I misled you. I went back and listened to yesterday's show because I was really not conscious of what was going on during yesterday's show. And I don't think that it necessarily came out wrong, but I know my thinking on it was wrong. So I want to let you know that I buffed that. And sorry about it. I am still surprised, though, that Apple retail did as well as it did as far as iPhone sales. The CIRP numbers, I'm not sure if I got this part yesterday or not, said that Apple took share from both mobile phone carriers and Best Buy in the September quarter as far as selling phones. Oh, okay. That's nuts to me because, you go into Best Buy and they'll throw in the kitchen sink if they're trying to sell something, right? Apple does not. If you go in to buy a thing, Apple will sell you that thing and then ask you if you want to buy something else to go along with it. Yeah, with the exception of like a year of Apple TV Plus or, 3 months of Apple Arcade or something like that. Best Buy will or Target will say, hey, buy this here and get a $50 Target card or something along those lines. Just kind of weird to me. Other thing really quickly, and this is just a straight up correction. I said yesterday that Katie Huberty was expecting Apple to slightly beat Wall Street consensus. Not sure where I got that. She's actually expecting them to miss Wall Street consensus, in a big way. Analysts are expecting Apple to report revenue of $64 billion. She's expecting Apple to report revenue of $60 billion. She's not concerned about it. It's not that there's a big problem. I mean, the big problem is that there was no iPhone last quarter or no new iPhone last quarter. And she thinks that's going to cost them. Truth of the matter is, I had a little business doing a show yesterday. I think, yeah, I was about half here, but I'm fully here today, or as fully here as I get. And I think that's going to do it for this afternoon. If you are live here now in the chat room, please stay live here now in the chat room. I will stop by there in a moment. If you are listening to the audio podcast of this show, we get together every Monday through Friday, 3:30 Pacific, 6:30 Eastern, other times, other places on my YouTube channel, youtube.com/Ken Ray. It would be wonderful if you were to join us here sometime. In a few minutes with Ross Rubin this week, you'll get a new episode of that again tomorrow, macOS Ken again tomorrow, and then we'll do macOS Ken live tomorrow afternoon. And I will talk to you soon. Oi. Hey, the mailman's here. Do you hear him? All is right with the world. Hang on a second. Please. Okay, who has what to say? Well, everybody's agreeing on something. Oh, your macOS Ken Patreon people. Thank you. Thank you so much. See, I feel weird. I feel weird mentioning it, but thank you. It means the world. Where else are we? Sorry, everybody. I'm still reading what people were saying. I like that idea. Mac Interactive says wild speculation on my part, but when the new consumer Apple Silicon Mac is released, I'm thinking we could see a return of the iBook moniker. I always like the iBook name. I doubt it. I don't know why. They're getting away from the i thing, right? It's Apple Watch. It's Apple One. It's Apple Music. It's not iTunes. I like the idea just because of the retro feel, but I'd be surprised. Then again, I've been surprised before. Sorry, still reading. What's weird is, I'm sorry, and I think I meant to talk about this during the show and I forgot to. It doesn't matter, but I am crazy excited about the Apple Silicon Mac, and I don't know why. I think because it represents a real change. And of course, what you want it to be, wow, my mic was positioned wrong the whole time. What you want it to be is kind of not a change for people, right? You want them to be able to sit down to a Mac and start using the Mac as a Mac, and yet knowing that there's something new internally to it makes it kind of an exciting thing to see. I am also curious what they're going to do about marketing on it. Or maybe they don't have to do anything about marketing on it. Maybe it is still just a Mac. And they don't have to let people know that, hey, we're making the thing inside now as well. Unless that ends up being some sort of big cost change. My only regret, Matthew says, my only regret on getting the 2015-inch MacBook Pro is that it doesn't have USB-C, but to get that, I would have had to pay a lot more and worry about the wonky keyboards. Wonky keyboard. I think he played the blues, didn't he? Yeah, no, I've got the wonky keyboard thing is killing. It's not killing me. It's fine. But I've had a problem with my keyboard for over a year now. And finding time is always my issue. Interesting. Dave Winograd says he's going to get the 27-inch iMac with Apple Silicon and replaceable memory. A desktop? I haven't thought about a desktop in years, which is funny because I don't go anywhere anymore because none of us do. But I'm assuming that I'll get to go to a coffee shop again one day. And when I do, taking my 27-inch iMac would be kind of a pain. Frank says Apple events are going to be a series on Apple TV Plus. Hey, maybe Jon Stewart could host them, Frank. That'd be kind of neat. Frank, killing it. Oprah, Apple, Apple, Oprah. We're showing our age, Frank. Ages, plural. $365 episodes of what dropped all at once? See, I was over here doing something else, and you guys said other things. I've seen pictures, Chuck, of somebody sitting at a Starbucks with a 21-inch iMac on the table. Hey, free Wi-Fi is free Wi-Fi. Plus, you don't have to make your own coffee. Right. I think that's going to do it for me this afternoon. Thank you, everybody, for hanging out. I really appreciate it. 27-inch iMac into a Starbucks. Well, it's easier than making your own scones, I suppose. All right. Thanks, everybody who's here. I appreciate it. And thank you, Chuck. I appreciate that, too. Yeah, we'll do this again tomorrow. I'm looking forward to it. I'll talk to you soon.